the development of small businesses, when in the name of cleaning the city, you're decimating the livelihood of people who have very little choices, but selling outside of the market and earning to feed their family, like Stabroek Market and many of the other markets, Rosignol, many of the markets around the country. And those taxi drivers who had worked there for 20 years in front of Banks DIH and at Stabroek Market Square, that they're chased off of the square unceremoniously and can't earn a living. Many of them have debts in the bank, at the bank, and families to feed. I said to them, and I will say again to all the taxi drivers and the vendors, we are not against cleaning up the city. We support the government in cleaning the city. We will support that. And we will support the government if it is focused on removing criminal elements from the Stabroek Market Square, because I heard that as an excuse. But you can do both things without taking away people's livelihood. You can't talk in abstract about the development of small businesses. Those are small businesses. Those are the people who sometimes graduate from there into the big stores. We know half of the people now on Regent Street and Robb Street were once stall holders in some of the markets in the early days. That's how they grow. And so the rhetoric again about value added that the president spoke in Parliament cannot match the policies of his government. And so I do hope that we will not miss the opportunity on the 25th, the night of the 25th, to talk about defining the course of the future, where our country is actually going, and how people are going to be treated. Are their rights going to be respected? That whilst you support going after people for money laundering and tax evasion, that we cannot go back to those days when there is no due process. Police cannot run into people's home at 2 in the morning and 3 in the morning businessmen place and seize their assets without a court order. You cannot do that. Cannot use the army in a surreptitious, secretive way to perform civilian tasks, because the Defense Act and our Constitution are clear about their role. These are the things, the separations that the president needs to speak about. And I was just handed, Mr. Harman came to my office and he handed me a copy of the Commission of Inquiry report into the public service, and I hope that that would be addressed too, about relations with our public service. Maybe those are the kinds of things in a very specific way. Otherwise, it is just pontificating, wallowing in an introspection of our past without talking about where we are going. Because as the president correctly pointed out, we need to go places in the future, use the next 50 years in a different way. He said, let's get away from the ethnic arithmetic, let's get away from all of these things and work towards a different society. And so we will be listening carefully to that speech to see if it addresses all of these issues and many more that I'm sure that our people are waiting to hear answers for. Now, I have seen we're missing a huge opportunity. Some time ago, I spoke about this. I think it was in the Parliament in one of my speeches. I said that this government lives in a make-believe world, a cocoon. They believe that if they don't know about something, that it is not happening. and that is within their circle. And they're so shut out from the rest of the society and from voices of reason, and so arrogant about it, even when confronted with good advice from civil society and everywhere else. They believe that people are out to get them and that they have answers to everything. So we have now I've seen a religious leader, and it's utterly despicable for people of the cloth, religious leaders, to mislead congregants and others. But we've heard now recently that the economy has slowed down because drug proceeds are not flowing freely through the economy. And then the Minister of Finance latches on to this excuse, and he repeats it. And if they actually believe that, as I think they do believe that, then he misses the opportunity to address the real issues surrounding our economy, because he lives in this make-believe world that it's only because of drug proceeds that flowing less through the economy, that's why things are now going well in the economy. So why should I do anything about it? Everything else is perfect. And so he misses this huge opportunity. Now, I thought that since 15,000 ounces of gold were smuggled out under the PPP every week, and that this new government has blocked this now, 15,000 ounces multiplied by 52 weeks would deliver something like 750,000 ounces over that. And so at the price of gold, that's $800 million more in the economy. $800 million more of legal flows to the economy, US dollars. That's a lot of money. That's $160-something billion more. So I thought that because they're blocking it, then this money would be here for us to spend. It's not the leakage. And you remember Professor Clive Thomas said on the illicit flows that another about 30% or something like that of our money was being siphoned off and going abroad. So I assume they'll block this too. So this would be checking the BOP, from the BOP, balance of payment. So we'd have another maybe $150 billion there to spend, since they blocked the illicit flows out of the country. And you recall that they would have saved $28 billion that the PPP was supposed to steal every year from public procurement. And so they would have much more money in the economy to spend. And they saved $200 million so far in procurement of oil because the oil prices tumble. That's another $40 billion available to the country. Combined, you would have probably close to half a trillion dollars. $500 billion more to spend in the economy. So why are we talking about reduction in flows? In fact, you should have been talking about an increase of flows through the economy, money available to people. But it's all fake, because they've made this whole case about drug proceeds. So you know what he's effectively saying? That if you can't pay your loans now, that if you can't pay your loans somehow, and things are bad for you, you're losing jobs, people not buying in the stores anymore because they've lost their jobs, that your hardships are determined and they're slowed in the economy, because you didn't get the drug proceeds flowing to you. These people don't understand the reality of what's happening. Now, why are we in the doldrums? Why are we in economic decline? Is it possible that even with the world situation where there is a slowdown in demand, is it possible for a country like Guyana to prosper? Now, we have pretty strong growth in the United States of America, and even though growth has slowed in some countries in the world, they still have positive growth rates. Even in Europe, many of the countries have come out of recession. In 2007 and 2008, the world was in recession. The United States of America, Europe, Japan, many of the emerging markets. But we grew. We grew through that period. Although there was a weakening of global demand, everything of this sort. We grew through that period. I believe it's still possible to grow rapidly given the world situation, the hand we are dealt with. And what is even more positive is that we have had a reprieve, a respite, because as I said before, our fuel bill has tumbled from $500 million to just $300 million. Tumbled. And so that is money available in the country, at least $40 billion, $200 million more that we have to spend. But why did things slow down so precipitously? One can always argue that the economy you saw a slower year, sometimes you have a lower growth rate, etc. in a given year. And if you examine the period under the PPP, you'd see some years you have high growth rates and some years they're all positive, but they dip a bit, then they go up again. So it's not going to be uniform. But what was important, and so in the latter days, they can always argue, well, things may have slowed down a bit because we are not spending all the money we should have spent in the economy. The government stimulus was not there. They cut $90 billion from the budget in 3 years. That was not spent in the economy. And so it could have slowed things down. But why this precipitous drop? How can you explain it? And it can only be explained by, as I said before, one reason is that the people do not have confidence in this government. And every single day, they do things to erode that confidence further. And so I'm not going to just leave that hanging. I'm going to tell you about the things they're doing to erode confidence in the economy. The first thing is that private property. Forget Pradoville. They can go after Pradoville and say they focus only on politicians, trying to go after properties of politicians. That's fine. But when you start going after people who have had leases and they're growing crops on the land for 20 years, taking back those leases from them. When you go after people who have had title land, bought title land, and we have cases, I can give you specific cases, names of people, because we have filed and the cases in the court on their behalf. When you go after people who have a title or a transport, when you try to take back people who had allotted plots of land by the government and who have paid their money or have received a title, but they can't build now because of hardships or something. When you take away people's core home, who are living in these homes, have their title, paid all their money there, then what you're saying is that private property is not sacred anymore. And that is one thing. We had amended our constitution. We put a constitutional guarantee to private property because we came out of a history when, on the Burnham era, people's properties were seized without fair market compensation. And it sent a bad signal to the private sector. And so once again,